The recent murders of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd have sparked public outrage across the nation, and rightfully so, as they add to a long list of black lives who were taken away from us far too soon. On this week's episode of the Infusion Breakdown Show, the Breakdown crew sat down amongst ourselves to discuss which of these issues, past or present, have affected us the most. Let's see what we came up with. Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to introduce to you our Black-owned Business of the Week, where we showcase quality Black-owned businesses for you to support every week. This week's business is Soulstar Tea and Wellness, based out of Virginia Beach, where they have high-quality artisan teas crafted using premium tea leaves, organic herbs, pure spices, dried fruit, and other natural ingredients. Available to you on their website to order, including two of my personal favorites, Sweet Mahogany Roast and Tropical Cider. If you're a tea lover, be sure to visit their site so you don't miss out.
So to preface everything, I'll say that a lot of, or the two that I'm going to name in specific, they're very recent within the past 5 or so years. One is very recent, and then the other one has been a few years ago. But I'll definitely preface it by saying, you know, as I've said the last episodes, being young and Black and going through a period of his life when a lot of these, police killings were happening, I was a bit desensitized to it at first. I think a lot of it had to do with specifically the Trayvon Martin incident. That was really the beginning of it, because I kind of got this feel that these white people, they're allowed to gun us down in cold blood and get away with it. So for real, for me, that time period, it was a detachment period from kind of like the struggle in itself. So I think one thing that's kind of brought me back into being a way more sensitive to it than I was before is the fact that I've become a parent. So with that being said, the very first one that I'll name is the killing of Philando Castile in Minnesota a few years back. Reason why this one struck me or struck a chord with me after going back and actually looking at what happened and watching the video, because even then I was very empathetic with it because of how it happened, and most specifically with the fact that his girlfriend or wife was in the car with him, and then their daughter was in the car with him as well. And as a parent, that's something that you can never truly imagine, and it's not something that you can ever plan. You can never picture that planning out the way it did.
Can't prepare for it.
And then as a young child, you truly haven't entered the world yet as far as what reality is. Everything that you're going through in life as a child at that young age is constructed by your parents. So for you to be in the back seat of that vehicle and watching your father get gunned down in cold blood after he's already told the cop that he has a gun in the car with him and he's licensed to have it, for that to happen, man, that's like, I empathize with the child, because that's a numbing experience right there. And the fact that she's so young, and the fact that as she grows, she's going to be able to go on YouTube and any of these media outlets and watch that clip over and over and over again and see her younger self. And even when they had the wife or the mother in the back of the police car and the child was consoling, the mom, like, that's stuff that she's going to have to see forever. Like, we don't ever truly imagine the impact that this stuff has on the psyche of these kids, while we're constantly feeding this data, through the mainstream news. Like, same thing with George Floyd. Like, his daughter is going to look back on this time and watch her father get murdered in cold blood. Like, yes, I do hope that strikes a chord with her, to where she is the damn near the next Angela Davis or something of that nature. But it's like, you have to emotionally feel for this child, because she's going to have generations and generations of kids that come after her that are going to see that same video that she saw, and she's going to have to convey how you need to react, what emotions you are allowed to feel. And I mean, you're honestly allowed to feel any emotion, but for her to have to be, the bearer of that information for generations to come, and then ensure that it's passed down properly from generation to generation. I mean, that's a scary thought to think. And, tying that into a lot of the responses to present day killings, and just how people respond to it. The number one response I hate, and we kind of seen this recently in Atlanta with the gentleman that was murdered at the Wendy's. people always say that if you're innocent, there's no reason for you to resist. This was a case where this man was innocent, informed the cop of what he was doing and how he was going to carry it out, and still end up dead. Like that just genuinely does not make sense to me, to where people are still trying to use the rationale that if you're innocent, then you do not serve a threat, and that you will, leave this traffic stop with your life. That just is not logical present day, because we've seen case after case after case after case
Breonna
of,
Taylor.
exactly, of people. Well, we can't say Breonna Taylor in this particular instance, just because she never had a chance to react.
But I'm saying people who were
Yeah,
quote
true.
unquote doing nothing.
Right.
She had nothing to fear because
So
she wasn't doing anything wrong.
exactly. So for me, as a parent, that's the number one that's going to sit wrong with me, because it factors into my decision making. If I want to exercise my right to bear arms. Like I've played first person shooters all my life. My dad is from the country. Anytime we go out to Missouri, we shoot guns. We've gone to the range and shot guns. That still to this day factors into if I truly want to purchase a gun, because it shows me that even if I comply and I inform a police officer of what I have on me, and I have my son in the car, that he still can, in his legal defense, say that he feared for his life if he sees me reaching below my shirt or into my pocket or whatever. That just
Even though he told you to get your wallet out, which was in your pocket.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Like that's something that's it's going to impact my decision making, because it doesn't matter how much I mature, it doesn't matter how much we grow as a society. The past is always going to repeat itself until people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's not just a person and case by case thing. That's a society as a whole being tired of seeing the same things pan out the way that they pan out. And then I'll also say that the second one, and most impactfully, is George Floyd, because I know I texted Josh earlier in the week about a theory that I won't go too much into detail of. But this killing right here, why this is so impactful for me, is because it's going to set the narrative for how we promote change of any sort. We can always hope for some shit. We can always, march until our damn souls fall off our shoes. But at the end of the day, we're doing it for change. And one of the things that I like a lot of people saying is like, we're marching. We don't care about you naming, the Ave in Washington, D.C., Black Lives Matter Ave. We don't care about the painting. We're marching, and we're also at this point providing theories of change that we did not have back in 2016. Even though Kaepernick, he had his plan, we're now seeing the mass come out and say, okay, these killings keep happening in areas that are prone to socioeconomic issues, as far as being the ghetto, the projects, and what have it be. People are specifically calling for you to defund the police, not to disable the police, but you to take those funds and allocate those dollars and push them into the poor communities to help with the advancement of that community. That's literally something that we were not hearing 4 or 5 years ago, when Colin Kaepernick was bringing to the headlines of why he was kneeling. So we now see a front that is united. And I mean, yes, we have, people of all races, colors, and whatever, pushing the initiative. But George Floyd, and not even, how he was murdered, like the 9 minutes of you kneeling on this man's neck is sick, because you're going to see people on the opposite end use that to mock Colin Kaepernick and to mock these athletes that are going to go into the season protesting the same way. You're going to see these white supremacists use that same knee that Derek Chauvin had on George Floyd's neck.
They're already doing
as a means to get back. Like, exactly, we're already seeing it. So we're seeing that before we even get to kickoff and to tip off. Just imagine how bad it's going to be when sports do come back, if they come back. Because I mean, we see now that Kyrie Irving has been very, very outspoken, and at the end of the day, I don't know if you guys saw what Austin Rivers said, but he brought up the argument that people are ready to play, and a lot of the people that he know in the league are in dire need of that paycheck because, and I quote, 99% of the league hasn't made Kyrie Irving money. Like, for me, that's you're not getting the full picture of why present day protests are so impactful. They're so impactful because there's no distractions. People literally are consuming more data than they ever consumed. They're literally at the touch of your thumb. You can read case by case of what's happening to these Black bodies all across the nation. And for me, that's just I'm not gonna say it's unprecedented, but it is in a sense because before we didn't have, we had it in 2016 and all the time before, but like in 92, for example, you saw the Rodney King beating on television. You didn't see it on the web because the web wasn't there yet. You literally saw it from what the anchors are bringing, but now you're seeing it from what the news anchors are bringing. And then on top of that, it's not just local media covering it, it's national media covering it. And then literally every social media site there is also covering it. So, I hope the change is here to stay. I'm not gonna say the change has arrived yet, but when it does arrive, I hope it's here to stay. And I hope it's not, I'm not gonna say whitewash, but I am gonna say whitewash. I hope it's not whitewash to where, you move the finish line a little bit closer just to bring it back in the future.
With me, really, just like you, I would say Trayvon Martin really is my first person. I just remember the story being in high school because it happened in 2012, I think in February. And I graduated in June of 2012. And I just remember it just thinking about it and just being one of my worst fears. Not necessarily being shot, but being really in a helpless situation and then not being able to explain myself. Um, and that's when I really started focusing on people's perception of Black people and just thinking about, oh, this is really part of the root of the problem, really. And I just also remember how a lot of white people try to defend Zimmerman and find dirt on Trayvon, just to defend that perception too. And I remember talking with my family and my brother. He felt like Zimmerman was justified with what he did because of how he described events. He said that Zimmerman said that when he was walking back to his car after he was already advised not to follow him, Trayvon confronted him. He was like, "You got a problem, homie?" And Zimmerman said he said no, and then he said that Trayvon said, "Well, you got a problem now." And look, I'm just speaking in my experience. I don't know a lot of Black people who say you got a problem, homie, to a random person. That's just me. It just seems more a Latino type thing. I'm not trying to be stereotypical or anything like that. That's just
It's a bit
something.
cartoonish.
Yeah, I just don't see that actually happen. What he actually said was, "Why are you following me?" That's what he actually said from actually witnesses. And that's really the key. And to me, really, like Zimmerman was following Trayvon. And so even if Trayvon was hostile, it shouldn't matter. You was following him for no reason at all, basically. And Des mentioned how he was with the verdict, how he was upset. And I wasn't upset because I knew what was going to happen. Like I'm pretty good at predicting a court case and realizing what's going to happen. And I kind of knew what was going to happen. So I wasn't really like upset or anything like that. I wasn't surprised or anything. I was with a group of people that I actually hung out with at the time, and I was telling them, I was like, he's gonna get off. They don't have all the facts. They just have basically one side of the story, and then a video recording of somebody yelling. That could be Zimmerman, could not be Zimmerman, but yeah. So, and they was like, "You crazy? What are you talking about?" And then when he got off, he was like, "Oh wow!" They was all surprised because even though he did follow him, the whole stand your ground law will say that Zimmerman had the right to do it, basically. And to me, I just feel like that law was created specifically for situations like this, like racists hunting Black people, and then when they try to defend themselves, they have a reason to kill them, basically. So that was really the big thing about that. That case. And then Jordan Davis happened later on that year after he was murdered over loud music. And that once again brought me back to my fear. and I have always been aware of like the music, like in my car, like the music levels in my car. No matter like I go to a stoplight, I'm always looking around to see like if there's somebody in the car, is their window rolled down, can they hear my music, all of that, because I just don't know. And plus, in parking lots too, I'm always like adjusting my music up and down to see like, oh wait, somebody hearing this music? Like, can I get in trouble for this? You know? And plus, police can stop you too and just say like, oh yeah, your music is too loud and you're disturbing the peace.
That's the last thing you need is them stopping you.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I just feel like, and that goes with what Desmond said, I think in a previous episode about Black people having to shift who they are or what they do in order to not try to be perceived in a certain way. So that was really the big thing about Jordan Davis that really affected me as far as the music. And then Walter Scott happened, I think in 2015. And this is when I was in college, and I remember I was in college with my professor, like African American Studies, and she was talking about it. And this one was significant to me because I remember the officer like throwing the taser right by him after shooting him in the back, and it made me think of how Black people cover up a lot of shit with just jokes. Because I remember Dave Chappelle, he had a stand-up skit about sprinkling crack, about the cops sprinkling crack on Black individuals after they did things like sprinkling crack, and we make jokes out of this, but that should really be happening. And white people are like, oh, he's crazy. But like, yeah, that should really be happening. And this is a taser in this instance. But like, if you think that has not happened, then we might have to reevaluate the law system, to be honest with you. So that was really big as far as Walter Scott. And then Eric Gardner, this one was significant because I have family members that know Eric Gardner, know Eric Gardner's girlfriend or baby mother, I believe, because he lived in Staten Island, New York, and you know, I'm originally from New York, and it was the one time I guess you could say I was surprised that the officer actually got off, because I felt like it was a clear use of excessive force, and then him yelling "I can't breathe" 5 times with his hands behind his back. So I just think that was wild, and that's when I originally donned the "I Can't Breathe" shirt in response, because I felt like Black people simply can't breathe freely in the presence of white people without some kind of fear or retaliation or something like that. So that was really how that happened with Eric Gardner. And then pretty much what Desmond said with Philando Castile, I was really the same way. Not really from a parent aspect, because I'm not a parent, but I understand definitely like how the girl is and how she was consoling her mother. Like that makes you feel some type of way, especially you got to think about the psyche of her as she grows up and as she gets more used to like, oh, what really happened and everything like that. But that really stuck with me because of really a whole gun issue in America. And a part of the reason I'm not a gun person is because I know I'm going to be looked at differently with a gun, basically how Desmond was saying. Like, I'm going to be looked at differently with a gun. And I felt that even in a situation where I'm defending myself, like in my house, I feel they'll still find a reason to lock me up if they really wanted to, you know? Like, I could be in my house and somebody breaking in my house and I shoot them, they can still find a reason to lock me up. I feel like that's how fearful I am. Like, I don't even think I want to have a gun in my house, to be honest. So that was really how it is with the whole gun thing. And in this instance, like Desmond said he had a gun and he still got shot. Like, why the fuck would I wait for you to come up to the car, tell you I have a gun, and then try to shoot you? What type of bullshit is that? Like, it's just wild. So yes.
Bro, it's funny you say that because I always have these scenarios that play in my mind where like if you were ever at any, heavily populated area and a shootout happens and it's a domestic terrorist incident and you turn around and you as a Black male have the means to de-escalate the situation and you use your weapon and you kill the domestic terrorist, I still in my mind envision the police running in and still finding a means to shoot you. Like they're going to look at you as a threat before they look at you as a savior. And like that to me is just,
There was actually one instance
it's
I forgot.
disgusting.
Yeah, there was actually one instance I forgot the name where it was a security guard and he was there was a fight at a bar and it was a Black security guard. He broke up the fight and he subdued everybody and somebody called the cops and the cops rode up. They was outside the bar. He had him like tied down. He had a gun on him and everything too because he was a security guard. And the cops got out. First thing they did was shoot him. Like, and he's a security guard. Like, why are you shooting a security guard? He subdued everything. And like, he was like, whoa, like everybody yelled too. Like, he's a security. Don't shoot him. Like, and he got up. First thing he did was shoot him. Like, yeah, because like Desmond said, we're going to be seen as a threat.
Did he survive?
No, he died. He was, yeah, I forgot his name, but he's definitely another one of the victims on the list. Yeah. Yep.
Crazy.
And I feel like cops don't know how to calmly handle situations. Like I feel like the only cop that's probably trained in that is what the hostage negotiator maybe. Like, they really don't know how to handle situations. Like like you have a gun on you like in a car or something like that. Like I've seen a video of Jermaine Reed, like the cop just overreacted in a situation, and really it gets everybody nervous in that situation because you have a gun, and I'm like, what's going on? What you want me to do? And usually two cops are there and they're giving conflicting signals, like get out of the car with your hands up. Like, how am I supposed to open the door with my hands up? That does not, like, you want me to reach for the doorknob to get shot to open the door? Like you need to give more clear signals, and you need to calm down and realize what's going on. Like, they're too fearful for their lives. Like, they're emotional wrecks, especially the cop that killed Philando Castile. Like, what are you doing? Like, I thought he was reaching for it. You told me to reach for my wallet. Like, I'm so confused. I'm not reaching for it. Yeah, it's
One
wild.
thing, one thing I really don't like that I haven't observed as much down here in the Hampton Roads area with police intimidation, and like I've seen this in the country where I'm from, so Richmond County, Tappahannock area, all that, where they'll have someone pulled over on the side of the road, it's like a 70-year-old woman or something, and there's 4 police cars. So unless it's Griselda Blanca herself or somebody of that caliber, there's no need to have 4 police cars have them on the side of the road. And just with that, it's hard to not be nervous. It's an instant way to escalate the situation. The person's going to be jittery and they're going to overreact, regardless of who they are. It's overdoing it, I feel like. I mean, I do think that I mean, if it's a dangerous situation, that might be warranted, but generally, as a general rule of thumb, I don't think it's really necessary. And then also, when I see people get arrested and someone isn't resisting, they have their hands behind their back. Why does it take 2 people to handcuff one person and you're snatching them and jerking them? I just never understood that. I feel like if you're trained properly, if you're a capable and competent individual, that you should be able to handle the situation, given somebody being compliant with you. In which we've seen that, and we've seen it still escalate, as you were saying earlier. So much similar to what you were saying, Desmond and Josh, about Philando Castile, I kind of was thinking about the familial aspect of seeing, he died in front of his daughter, but I looked at it the opposite way. So the 2 cases that affected me the most, I'm gonna have to say the Ahmaud Arbery, and then last night's Rayshard Brooks. So they actually hit really close home because I'm really protective of my family, and my dad, he lives in Georgia, and like all this crazy stuff is happening literally hours where he's from. And so he's not in the immediate area, like for example, Glenn County. I think that may be a few hours away, but still, nonetheless, he's in the area, the close proximity of that stuff going on. And there's something about the prospect of this happening. So my dad, he's an older black guy. He's not old. He's like, he'll be 49 this month, and he's darker than me. He's still light, but he's still recognizable as a black man. And as a black man, you have a certain way you have to navigate and go through life. Like he talks about when he's leaving work and things that he has to look out for, and it's just certain things that I would imagine if he was a white person that he would not experience. And to just to hear that, there's something about like over the course of my maturation, I've noticed the humanization of our parents, in this case specifically the black father. So growing up, every boy looks up to his father in one regard or another. The black father symbolizes strength, compassion, love, and leadership. And so as I've gotten older and grown with my parents, I see them more so as peers. I see them for their full totality of what they are. They're human beings with emotions. They have concerns. They have their own ideas, and these are things that I'm now exposed to. Like maybe when I was younger, I was more insightful and learned quicker than other kids because my parents expressed a full range of emotions around me. But still, nonetheless, as an adult now, I see that they have valid concerns, and they have they deal with issues like this too. And something about growing old like this and seeing it alongside your parents, it's a shift from your parents being invincible, you never think that anything could go wrong, to having the idea of confronting your own parents' mortality. And that's something that's never really settled well with me. And that's why those cases still resonated with me so strongly, is because of, just like I said, the close proximity. Like with Ahmaud Arbery, he was just checking out a property. And so I was on the phone with my father like right after that became mainstream news. Just think that happened in February 23rd. And then there was no major arrest made, well, no arrest made, period, until months later due to public outcry. But so my dad, he just bought a new home in Georgia, and he said he said, how common is that? Do you think? How many times do you think that I've went and just checked out properties, not saying like actually going into the homes, but just seeing a place under construction, and went to the property just to check it out to see if he wanted to buy it? That's a fairly common thing. He's done that. So just to think, just how common, just how routine had he been going there to just look at a house, say, oh, maybe I want to buy this, so he can move there, and then somebody to misconstrue it, and then take one of these thugs, like Josh says, that's exactly what it is. One of these vigilante thugs take justice into their own hands and make up a false premise to go and execute their own form of justice. Like that's just disgusting to me, and that's what is really is something I haven't really reconciled with. It's like something outside of the realm of your control has the ability to shift the way your life is and make a change. That's why, like, I realize now why I was so hesitant to talk about privilege before. I never doubted its existence, but I'm a very self-motivated person, and I like to think that I can do anything, which I still do. I still do believe that. But the idea that something outside of my control could potentially alter my life, it was a physical discomfort. I had to reconcile those ideas that it can't coexist. I'm very capable. I can do whatever I want to. I can do anything I can actually dedicate myself to. But there's also things that are outside of my control, and I didn't like thinking about that. But so in hindsight, when I was looking at the mugshots of these two guys, these two thugs that killed Ahmaud Arbery, and I was looking at their faces, and so I was just curious, like what could drive a human being or individual to be so hateful, like the hate in the heart. And I looked in their eyes and I saw cowardice. Like I was to imagine if you were to sit down and go see them in the jail right now and ask them, they wouldn't have an answer. They clam up. They wouldn't have an answer to it. They wouldn't be able to tell you why exactly they felt so strongly that they felt like they had to hunt that man down. And the more time passes, like the more you read about it, you hear this, the more stuff going. Like he was actually Ahmaud Arbery's uh, fibers from his clothing was found on the vehicle. So apparently, the vehicle had also struck him too, like sideswiped him essentially. But on the topic of hate, like this is just hate is so deeply pervasive in people's minds across this country. So there was actually something I was looking at earlier when Desmond was speaking, and I saw something on Twitter earlier. So there's a gentleman. Well, I'm not even gonna address him that way, but it's a guy. He's the founder of Trump Students, and so he had shared a video on Twitter earlier today. That's when I saw it on the subject of disbanding or defunding the police in any capacity. And there was this guy, and his name wasn't given. I guess his username was in the video, but the caption was "Defund the police, and we will take matters into our own hands." And just that idea to where you think that you're so entitled to be judge, jury, and executioner and exercise your own form of disinjustice or injustice, for lack of better terms. I don't understand how that's a thing. I don't understand what motivates a human being to do that. Like, why are you so threatened? Why is being black so scary to you?
Take what into their own hands though?
They were saying like the justice system. So if you defund or
I know.
disband the police, yeah.
I'm not actually
Oh, you weren't
asking.
asking me.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, crime has gone down. So what do they think is hurting America at this point? What do you think? Just black people just looting everywhere and unfulfilled? Like I don't understand what they're trying to accomplish here. Okay, yeah.
It's like they have this false narrative in their heads. The people who have this hatred in them. Because
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm sorry. That kind of what you said when he said we'll take it in our own hands. That kind of reminds me of because I was looking at the Charleston church shooting too, um, with the crazy looking motherfucker. He he of course was he was influenced ironically by the Trayvon Martin case, and he was like, oh yeah, I understand why Zimmerman did it, so and so, and then that basically caused him on a rampage of him going into these websites, these racist websites of saying that black people are rape white women and everything like that. And when he got caught, like all these white supremacists was like, we don't condemn his actions, but these are events to come. The fuck does that mean? Events to come? What do you say? You gonna go into black churches and start shooting them up? What the fuck you talking about? Like, so it's wild.
I'm really into understanding the thought process behind how people arrive at certain conclusions, and I really don't understand what drives a human being to hate another on the basis of their skin color. I understand people say racism is taught, which it is,
They learned
but
it from the parents, yeah.
yeah, but for an individual, like how would you justify it yourself. Like, could you tell me why do you hate this person so much? And I don't think they really have an answer for it.
They'll say we're criminals, rapists, and we need to be stopped. There were
Then I would go
pollute,
further. Can you show me?
pollute,
Show me what you
polluting.
like. Show me evidence.
There's been plenty of like you see like Trump supporters, you ask them like really logical questions. It was like, oh, you ask them questions about Obama. He was like, oh yeah, I mean, Obama was responsible for 9/11. He was like, Obama wasn't even in office in 2001, right? It's like, well, yeah, but he was responsible. So they just see this shit on TV and just believe anything they say. This is how people are. So
Being
they just
uninformed is a new norm.
yeah, it's much more dangerous than people realize. I'll say that.
Would you say the real problem is ignorance? I mean, hate on the basis of
Ignorance.
race is ignorance. Would you say that was the root of it?
Yeah.
But how does
Misinformation, but at the same time, I think, like I said, when people get a certain age, they're not gonna be so receptive to information. Like it's gonna be harder to teach them as they get older. So you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So because they're so stuck in their ways, and I learned that from my job. So, but yeah,
I was looking back at the Philando Castile incident that occurred, and so in the aftermath of that, the NRA, I think it took them 2 days to put a response out, and then it really wasn't in the defense of a licensed gun owner. So they're really selective about who they choose to support, who is actually utilizing their Second Amendment rights.
yeah, it's kind of it's kind of both sides really because they kind of have to choose which side they want to go on. Because at some point, if you say like, yes, he was licensed to carry a gun, you're kind of turning your back on the police department who have nothing but guns. So you know what I mean. So you can't really say like, oh yeah, he was licensed to carry the gun. That was wrong. No, you'd be like, you just put out a clear statement, like I feel most of these companies did when, as far as like the Black Lives Matter, like I feel like some companies didn't even say Black Lives Matter. It's like we are with you, we understand.
Lip service.
Yeah, basically.
But what you say? So you're saying like they put them in a between a rock and a hard place because they couldn't pick a side. Why can't they be on the side of right?
It's not a money.
It it
It's
it doesn't
about
have to be the
profit.
like people
They'll, they'll,
versus.
they'll, they'll lose money. It's not about right. Morality is pushed to the side when profit is in the equation. Especially if you should know that in America, like they pollute the waters to spend less money, even though it is killing people. It costs money to give Flint, Michigan water. They don't want to spend that money.
It's deeply unsettling. Like we had talked about this a few weeks ago, like the videos. I don't know if this was a tape recording that we had or was it just like one of our banter hours after the conversation and we get off. But we're talking about how the reaction to seeing these videos. And I'm curious about how do you guys feel? Because I personally, when I see these videos of people gunned down, like Ahmaud Arbery, I remember that one specifically. I had just got to work or something like that, finished working the day. And when I saw the video, like it legitimately hurt. I was so confused the amount of hatred that allowed those people to take out those actions. And I mean, I kind of understand the idea of being desensitized because you do see these deaths so often and so frequently. And I remember last week I was talking to Josh about like when I first saw somebody get killed on video, and it was in a much more vicious manner. It was we don't need to go into detail about that, but it's something that just is like you're seeing something you're not supposed to see, and it's not quite right. You understand that,
It didn't hit
and
you the same way as that.
what was that?
It didn't hit you the same way as what you saw in the video about the guy getting killed. It didn't. Ahmaud Arbery didn't hit you the same way, or did it was the same?
No, no, yeah, it was the same. It was the
Oh,
same.
okay. Oh, okay.
But I'm saying like it's like I had felt that before, so it wasn't something that was totally foreign.
Oh, okay.
But it was a member of gang violence getting his head cut off with a chainsaw, and I saw that, and it just didn't settle. It messed with me for a few days. But
Uh,
it was somewhere towards the same effect to where like it just ruins your entire mood, and so I had to kind of like mentally make myself rebound after seeing the video of Ahmaud Arbery's death.
yeah. Well, I kind of mentioned in another episode where it makes us elicit reactions, whether that's sadness, anger, or whatever it is. Um, but really, the same way I was really with the Ahmaud Arbery video. I actually clicked on it and I didn't know what I was clicking on. I think it was on Instagram. And I clicked on it. I didn't know I was clicking on it. And I was like, like about 10 seconds in, I know what's happening. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, damn. And the crazy part about me is seeing him fall to the floor. That I feel like that was the most illicit, like the most craziest part about me. And like, oh shit, they just hunted him down. Like, oh, like that was the thing right there.
You feel how helpless he felt.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And I was just like, wow. And of course, that goes start going through my like, what would I do in that situation? How can I prepare myself for the situation? And then all of that. But I'm really the same way. The same thing with Eric Gardner. I was just like, what the fuck? He's like right there. They're basically the same with George Floyd. Like there's 7 other people in his goddamn block saying he can't breathe, and you're just literally sitting there looking at it like, what's up? Like what the fuck are you doing? Like it gives me that I'm confused to the point how Dez is when he says he's confused. Like how do they how can they justify this? So really with Eric Gardner, then Philando Castile. I think I saw the one with his girlfriend Diamond in the car, the aftermath. I think I saw that first, and just seeing him slumped over, I was just like, damn. And then actually seeing the dash cam footage of everything, I was just like, wow. But I think it's different when I actually see like the body and everything like that, and then seeing the aftermath of everything, and then seeing her cry in the car with the kid. I'm like, yeah, I need to get off the internet and not do this right now. Basically, you have to recover. Basically, it's bad for your mental health. Like you need to take a mental health break.
Like anyone with a conscience, it's hard not to empathize with seeing something of that nature.
Yeah, which is why I say the videos, listen, are good. Like even though I hate social media because of the ego aspect, but for the information aspect, it's doing wonders because it's making people see, especially white people, because the amount of white people that have actually come out and like actually apologized to Colin Kaepernick. It was like, Colin Kaepernick, listen, I didn't understand, and I'm so sorry. And just seeing that, I was just like, Eric Gardner didn't like the one in 2014. Didn't I just
We just made that up.
like I just don't get it. Like you now to this at this point, it had to take that so blatantly. It's mind numbing, really.
Early on, it feels unreal because you go from watching cops to seeing the stuff happen, like I'm not gonna say real time, but you see like the aftermath, on on the media outlets. And man, it's like just where I was at that specific time in my life, it didn't feel real. It felt very surreal. Like it felt, I'm not gonna say it felt like a video game, but it felt, I don't think it didn't strike an emotional chord at that time. But I mean, coming forth and, actually, being in a place where I can be receptive of emotion and things of that nature, I get more confusion and anger than I get rational thought. And the reason why I say that is because what pisses me off the most about the George Floyd incident is the people recording. Like, I get it. You fear for your life the same way George Floyd fears for his life. But it's amazing to me that you could just sit there and watch another man lose his life. Like does
You
that not
saying
fuck with
you
like
saying
does
they
that
should have
not
did
fuck with
something.
your conscience?
You
Like
saying they should have did something.
exactly. Like that's the one thing, and I can't sit here and say like, oh, if this was me, I would have done that, because I'm pretty sure everybody in that at that time was in a state of shock. But 8 minutes in time, like in person, is actually a very
Very,
long time.
A very
It's a
long time.
very,
very long
very long
time.
time.
Yeah.
So for you to see that, man, like it's sick that you're so fearful of the police and how they will react, that you saving another man's life from the police could
Oh
potentially
no,
cause
you
to
can
like
if you're the right person, you getting shot if you interrupt
yeah,
that.
like that shit is just disgusting. And I I find myself getting more pissed off about it today because I remember seeing a video, I don't know if it was yesterday or early today, where a K9 officer had a black man handcuffed behind his back, and you just see the German Shepherd just teeth sunk into his forearm. And the officers that come to help, you know, the K9 officer and then the dog, they don't try and get the dog off the man. They literally pin the black man down. So not only do you have a K9 who has the force to bite through bone and crush your forearm, and you know, I mean, you potentially losing your arm not just because it's you know, your bones are being crushed to, you know, to pieces, but then you also have a K9 to where if it has any form of disease that you might not know about, then you get infections. So the simple fact that people's instinctive reaction is to watch and restrain instead of de-escalating the situation, I can no longer watch it with a lack of empathy, because it just, any logical human being, it's not even a form of whether you're in an emotional place to watch it. You have to watch it now. It's no longer to where you see Michael Brown running away and getting shot, you know, Philando Castile, you know, reaching for his wallet and getting gunned down in the car. You're literally present day seeing situations unfold right before your eyes. Like I've seen countless of videos just over the past 2 weeks to where people are literally having anxiety attacks. And it's not just the officer's rationale, it's white America's rationale that, well, if she would just sit there and calm down, the situation would de-escalate itself. That is bullshit, plain and simple. Like
Yeah.
What is
you
meant to be
literally
will
mean,
be.
you
You wouldn't tell
literally
someone with anxiety that.
like you mean to tell me that you guys can literally sit here, feet crossed in your crib, 12 pack in the fridge open, watching this shit like it's sport. Like that's literally what white America does. They watch this shit like it's sport, and then they can hop their asses into Wavy TV 10's comment section and say, well, if then. You're not a scientist of any sort. You're not a theorist of any sort. So an if then statement should never come out of your fucking mouth, first and foremost. It shouldn't. I'm not going to sit here. Well, I mean, I guess I technically am. I can give you a license statement. I'm a political scientist and then have my bachelor of science. So technically, I could provide you an if-then statement, but I could only provide you an if-then statement off of logical reasoning, whether it's qualitative or quantitative method. You have people that literally watch a video and then give you theories. You're not licensed to do so. You're not even experienced to do so. So why are you giving me an if-then statement when you don't even have, one, the experience, or two, the qualifications to tell me what I should do when you don't even fear the same shit that I fear? So that those two things right there is why I have a issue. And I know I can't lump sum everybody as far as white America. I'm specifically speaking to the bigots and the irrational white people within America that watch this stuff and has been watching it for generation to generation, generation to generation, generation to generation, interacted with black people, interacted with people who are of my complexion, whether it's, you know, your lighter sense, and you get the sense that, you know, there's a white person will treat me way different than they'll treat my dad. You know, like I said, my dad is one of the darkest black men you will ever meet. People treat him different than they treat me, and I'm his son. So people are going to give me certain compliments that they would not even give him. And I've seen it happen. You know, my dad, you know, 25, 30 years of service in the Navy, he literally spent 25 years learning the skill to jumpstart what he truly wanted to do in life. So he opens up a landscaping business. Literally is the best person I've ever seen when it comes to working with their hands. I go over and I cut one of his lawns while he's out to sea. And they gonna tell my dad, well, damn, I think he cuts better than you. Like, nah, you can't say I cut better than him. If you're not willing to give him his flowers while he's out there 90-degree weather every single week for you, then you can't give somebody that type of damn compliment. Like, I'm learning from him and I can't even do half the stuff you do. So how are you gonna come out of your mouth and give me that compliment just because, one, you see how I look, and two, you're comfortable saying that? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So I don't know, man. Present day, man, I hope that we are able to reach a I call it a happy medium, because I tell you what, our generation of millennials, we're dangerous, but the generation after us is even more dangerous than us, because you kind of see that their conscience I would say they're second to none, because they're still young and they're growing up in a times where when we were on Nickelodeon, Disney, whatever, you see Nick and Disney now they're incorporating this stuff into their programs. Their parents got CNN on, and they're seeing this stuff unfold under their eyes. So you mean to tell me that they're sophomores, freshmen in high school, learning about American history while watching American history unfold before them, and then they don't feel some type of way about it? Like they're gonna fuck some shit up in a good way. Like my brother's generation and the generation after him, they're watching American history unfold before their eyes, and it's untold American history. It's literally stuff isn't. They're not going to be able to print stuff in the textbook fast enough, because they're reacting to it every day. So it's just amazing to me, and I'm intrigued by it as well, to see what the next generations, what they do to promote, some form of, racial and social justice reform. Because man, like they're not willing to march for no damn reason. Like they're of a pedigree to where if they march, then they want to see results, because they live in a digital age to where if they want to know something, they pull their smartphone out and they go get it. Whereas before, if you're in your mid 20s to late 30s, I mean, we kind of grew up at the start of the technological age, to whereas they were literally born into it. So they don't know about having to wait to find answers when they can literally pull out their smartphone and get that answer in 15 seconds. Like I'm excited to see. And then at the same time, we're leading them at the same time. Like, there has to be a voice of reason, there has to be a voice of logic, and I feel like millennials are doing a great job of leading the way and being the glue between our parents' generation and then their generation. Because I will say that our parents' generation is really, really critical and hypocritical at the same time of what they see the new generation doing. And I think it's not fair to the newer generation as well, because they can't help that they get all this data at their fingertips. Like that's literally the society they've grown accustomed to. Not even grown accustomed to, they've been born into. So it's going to be interesting to see how, when it comes to social justice, how our 18, 19-year-olds begin to mesh with our 40s and 50-year-olds. Is it going to be that same thing to where our generation can't wait for the baby boomers and whoever else to die off because they're still affecting policy change? Or is it going to be one of those things where like our parents' generation is like in sync, not only with us, but with our younger generation as well, that comes right after us? Because I feel like that's going to be critical when it comes to not only just, if you want to factor in your election ballots, but, it's critical as far as like how reform looks. Because I mean, it's amazing. And I'll leave it with this. It's amazing to me that Tupac was 25 when he died. It's amazing to me that Malcolm was in his 30s or maybe late 30s when he died. Like we're at that age, but I don't think we're there yet. Like we're going to begin to see like a generation to where you have your woke, and I hate using the word, but you're going to have your our generation that is socially articulate. I think I'll frame it that way. They're
Socially conscious.
Yeah, socially conscious, and they're able to not only take that conscious, but they're able to articulate it in ways that should promote change of some sort. Because I mean, for us, like we grew up playing GTA and all the other stuff. Like what's happening outside right now is literally shit that we've been playing on video games for years. Like it's hard to draw that line between reality. At times, it's hard to draw the line between reality and digital reality. So that's why, for me, there was a bit of like desensitivity with it. But I think kind of as I've matured as an adult, man. Like it's frustrating. Like there's no other word to use other than frustrating, because I think all parties except the victim are wrong. I feel like, you know, it's great that we have this stuff on camera, but it's shitty that you're willing to watch another human being die on camera. And then it's shitty on the departments that they are willing to fund to basically militarize the police instead of actually police the police. Like give them new information, new data, new whatever, so they can learn how to handle situations, man. Like you, instead of you increasing the training a department has to go through, you rather give them a M16 and you know, riot gear. Like that shit is ass backwards. You're potentially setting the police up to go fight a war over, you know, in the Middle East, rather than literally be benefactors to the community. Like that's literally what you know, serve an oath to do: serve and protect and uphold the Constitution of the United States. Like that's
Because we love our guns. That's why. But you mentioned politics. What do you have to say to the people who just be like, Republicans freed the slaves? I mean, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, the president that freed the slaves. So maybe you should look at the Republican Party a little bit different. Maybe they're there to help you. What do you say about that?
I would say that they're only learning half the story, and I think our education system only teaches you half the story, because you really do a lot of to be articulate and to be able to speak on politics and history in itself. It requires, one, either you to have gone to a university or community college to where you're getting courses that specialize in a certain period of history, or two, you just have the desire to learn, you know, what history is on your own. And so I say all that to say, to understand the Democratic and Republican parties and its organic from, you know, 1776 forward, Democrats have historically been against state intervention. Republicans, they were for federal intervention. What that essentially means is a Democrat was all for state rights, and a Republican at it in its organic nature was all for federal intervention, to where if any issue was going, they want the federal government to handle it. Turn of the Great Depression in the 1920s, when you have FDR and he introduces the New Deal, FDR is a Democrat. So mind you what I just said, a Democrat is against federal intervention. If you know anything about the New Deal, it was loaded with government programs on the federal level that benefited the state. Guess who didn't like that? Other Democrats. So that's when we began to see a turn of the tide, to where what your modern day Republican was a Democrat in the 1920s. And what your modern day Democrat was a Republican in the 1920s. So for you to take the party's history and not willing to take all the intricacies that come with it, I think you're not only selling yourself short of good information, you're also providing false information, because you're trying to paint a narrative that is not true. If this was true, then Lyndon Baines Johnson would have been a Republican that signed the Civil Rights Act. He was actually a Democrat. He was Kennedy's vice president. So, you know, we have to actually sit here and tell history from point 1 to point 2, and not just 0.75 up to 2, or 0 to 0.5. Like you need to tell the full story, so that people are truly understanding, like not just for their own well-being, but to prevent the spread of ignorance, man. Like, I mean, let's be honest. If you've been versed in history and in government, you would know something like that. You wouldn't even think to share anything that asinine. And the fact that your Republicans today are pushing that message is bullshit, because they know what Lincoln stood for back in 1865 isn't the same things that they stand for today.
Gotcha. Is there anything else you want to add, Brian?
No.
Desmond?
Nah, bro, I think we're good.
All right, you have an album of the week?
Yeah. So I cannot remember his name. Leanne's boyfriend.
Fitz.
Fitz, yeah. So Fitz, his album of the week 2 weeks ago was Midnight Marauders. It's Tribe Called Quest. My album of the week is actually People's Instinctive Travels and Rhythm of Rhyme. And if you know anything about this album, this is Tribe Called Quest as well. It has Can I Kick It, Bonita Applebaum. You know, if you know anything about Bonita Applebaum, you know it's one of my favorite songs. It's good cleaning music. Put it that way. If you're tired of your Maze and Frankie Beverly, then you know turn this on. And if you're from Virginia, you know Tribe definitely influenced a lot of, you know, Pharrell's music and, you know, anything Virginia. So you'll get a lot. I was actually listening to Pharrell earlier, and my boy was like, "Is this Tribe?" And it's just crazy because Q-Tip was like a big influence to Pharrell. So you'll get the gist.
All right, you guys heard it here. Make sure you guys comment if you guys like the discussion we had today. Don't forget to leave a like also. We'll see you guys next week. Peace. Hey guys, thank you for tuning into the discussion. If you guys want to see more content, we also had the Feel the Love series with Brian Carey as he breaks down the methods of plant growth. Joshua versus the movies, where I go against all your favorite movies, and Joshua versus the music, where I go against all your favorite music videos. So don't forget to check out the content, and I'm going to see you guys in the next discussion.